The big breaking update coming from the Supreme Court, where the Supreme Court has in fact in a way answered the plea given by the Tamil Nadu government, and the top court has said that the governor withholding bills is arbitrary. This is a big blow to the Tamil Nadu governor, and remember, this is also being seen as a big verdict when it comes to the powers of the governor. Remember, the Tamil Nadu government had gone to the court and filed a petition alleging that their bills were being held multiple times by the Tamil Nadu governor, and whether or not this comes into the discretionary powers of the governors in terms of returning bills, and a number of times that he can do that actually. So the Supreme Court has now given its order when it comes to the Tamil Nadu government's petition, and has also gone on to say that withholding assent is subject to review, and also laid down a timeline for governors to decide on bills. For more context, let me bring in my colleague Sam Daniel, who's reporting from Chennai. Sam, you've covered this issue in terms of the political powwow that we have seen over this multiple times, with the Stalin government and Tamil Nadu Governor RN Ravi being in loggerheads over this issue. So just bring our viewers up to speed on what this entire issue is about, which the Supreme Court has now delivered a very key verdict on.
Well, Tamil Nadu Assembly had passed 10 bills and were sent to the governor for assent. This ranges between a few months to a few years. And Governor RN Ravi, in the case of most of these bills, remained quiet, did not give assent. And later, under pressure, he sent them back to the Assembly, rejecting them. Then the Tamil Nadu Assembly examined these bills and passed them again, because under the Constitution, if these bills are passed again in the Assembly, the governor has no option but to give them assent. But in this case, the governor withheld these for a long time, and then he suddenly referred them to the president. It's in this context the Tamil Nadu government had moved the Supreme Court, asked for these to be declared illegal, and the government also asked for a clear timeline to be given for governors, that they cannot keep these bills withheld for a long time, and there has to be a time frame. It's in this context the court has now clarified that the governor has to abide by the aid and advice of the state government. He does not have any discretionary power, and the court has also given clear timelines in terms of how much time can the governor take to decide on these bills. The timeline is, in the case of withholding assent, it has to be given within 1 month's time. In the case of withholding assent without the aid and advice of the Council of Ministers, it ought to be done within 3 months. And in the case of presentation of a bill after reconsideration by the State Assembly, this has to be given assent within 1 month by the governor. So this is a landmark judgment, because the larger political picture is, in all the opposition ruled states, governors behave like a parallel government. That's what the ruling DMK alleged, undermining the elected governments, and they put in place several obstacles which scuttled the development of the state. In this case, there was a tug of war between the governor and the ruling DMK over the appointment of vice chancellors to state universities. The governor insisted that the search committees for the appointment of vice chancellors should include a nominee of the University Grants Commission. But the state government argued these state universities are run by their own statutes, their own bylaws, and they don't require to have a vice chancellor, the UGC's nominee in the search committee. And then the ruling DMK tried to bring in a new rule, removing the role of the governor in the appointment of vice chancellors. Again, the governor did not grant assent. So now all these 10 bills the Supreme Court has ordered will come into force from the day they were presented to the governor, which means all these bills would be deemed to have been passed or given assent by the governor. And the court has ruled very clearly, the governor, when these bills are presented to him again after reconsideration, he has to accept. At this point, there is no role, no jurisdiction for the governor to forward that to the president, as Governor RN Ravi has done. And this applies not just to Tamil Nadu, this applies to across India wherein several opposition rule states, governors are being seen to be stumbling blocks for political reasons, as these state governments allege that they function as representatives of the BJP government at the center. The BJP has been denying this for a long time, but now the court has spelled out very clearly that the governors ought to abide by the aid and advice of the Council of State Ministers, and then a clear timeline given. The governors cannot be keeping these bills indefinitely on hold, assuming they have unimaginable powers with them. That's a larger political point. The Tamil Nadu Assembly is in session. We can expect a statement by the Chief Minister on the floor of the House very soon.
That's right. And Sam, very interestingly, now that you were pointing out, and if you can just repeat that for more clarity for our viewers. So the bills which had been withheld by the Tamil Nadu governor are now going to be presumed to have been, in a way, the nod has come through for that, or will the Tamil Nadu government now wait for an official nod or clearance from the Governor House?
To read the exact line, the 10 bills shall be deemed to be clear from the date it was represented to the governor. As I told you, after a long delay, the governor had returned these bills without assigning any reason. Then in its wisdom, the Tamil Nadu Assembly passed these bills again and sent them back to the governor. So it's from this date, they are deemed to have been cleared. They are deemed to have been given the assent by the governor in that sense. So they come into force. These bills essentially attempt to clip the powers of the governor when it comes to appointment of vice chancellors. And in that case, for Governor RN Ravi, it's a huge setback.
Right. Sam, also, if you can just, in a way, you were, of course, telling us about the reasons why the Tamil Nadu government decided to approach the Supreme Court. But this is, of course, in the latest instance. But if you can tell us a little bit about the history that we have seen in the past several years or so between the governor and the Tamil Nadu government, and also the reasoning which has been given by the Raj Bhavan, the Governor House rather, in terms of withholding the assent to some of these crucial bills.
The tug of war dates back to several years, even several governments in the past, but it became more intense over the last few years after the DMK came to power, and even when earlier you had the AIADMK in power. One very important instance I can refer to was the release of the Rajiv Gandhi convicts in the Rajiv Gandhi assassination case. The Tamil Nadu government, even during when Jayalalitha was the chief minister, later when EPS became chief minister, when MK Stalin became chief minister, the Council of Ministers kept recommending their release since they have been behind bars for several decades, and there's no adverse comment or recommendation from the jails, and on humanitarian grounds these people can be released just like any other prisoner in India who gets to have an early or premature release based on their good conduct. But the governor just refused, and then one of these convicts, Pardiwala, moved the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court, after making strong observations, invoked its own power to release Pardiwala, one of the 7 convicts, and then others followed suit. That was the first instance. And then in other instances, like the Tamil Nadu government's move to get exemption from the mandatory need for medical admission, the governor took a long time to return it back, and then after the Tamil Nadu Assembly had passed it again, he took a few months' time before it was sent to the president, and only a few days ago the president has rejected that. There are several such instances where it was a tug of war. The governor arguing that the constitution provides him the powers to withhold bills, and he need not explain why he has decided to not grant assent, right, and that nobody can question him.
Sam,
when we had asked him specifically once when we met Governor RN Ravi.
We'll continue with what you're saying. Stay with us. Let me also bring in my colleague Nupur Dogra, who is joining us from the Supreme Court. Nupur, especially with regard to the powers of governors, there are several key observations, very important observations, which have been made by the Supreme Court. If you can summarize that for our viewers.
Well, In a very big development, the Supreme Court has now laid timelines for the governor to decide on bills that are presented to him. If you know that under Article 200 of the Indian Constitution, there is a proper procedure laid down, and there are three options to the governor presented. Whenever any state assembly passes a bill, governor has three options in front of him under Article 200. One of them is either to withhold assent with the consideration of or to give his assent, or to reserve it for the president assent. Now, in case of Tamil Nadu governor, he had withheld assent to at least 10 bills, and Tamil Nadu government had in fact moved the Supreme Court alleging inordinate delay on his part while deciding these bills. And in fact, what he had done was, in some of the bills he had first withheld his assent, then after sitting on it for a long time, he had sent it to the president for consideration. Now the Supreme Court has clarified that these three options are independent of each other. That means that the governor will have to either withhold assent, or give his assent, or reserve it for the president's assent in the first instance. It cannot be that he first withholds his assent, then after some months he gives it to the president. And now the government, the Supreme Court, in a very big development, has used its extraordinary powers under Article 142, and has in fact said that those 10 bills that were in fact withheld by the governor, and in fact were even sent to the President of India for reconsideration, will be considered passed. So this is in fact a very big development. A judicial intervention of this level has not been seen before. It is an unprecedented move by the Supreme Court, and in fact is an example for all the state. Remember, even state of Kerala has approached the Supreme Court. Previously, state of Punjab had moved the Supreme Court, and several other states where essentially opposition parties are in power, and we witness a tug of war between centre and state governments. They have moved the Supreme Court alleging that governor is causing
multiple
undue
states
delay.
in the past
Now
approaching
this
the courts
judgment by
on
the
this.
Supreme
Let me
Court
also bring in, I believe I am joined on the broadcast by A. Sarvanan, spokesperson for the DMK. Mr. Sarvanan, thank you so much for speaking to us here on NDTV. Your first reaction to the Supreme Court verdict?
This is a historic verdict, in the sense that the Supreme Court has firstly fixed a timeline for the governors to decide the bills passed by the state assemblies, and they have also reiterated that they should not act against the aid and advice of the Council of Ministers. And again, this is a slap on the BJP, which has tried to undermine the functioning of the state government through the office of the governor. All the governors who are in the opposition opposition ruled states, are all acting against the interest and welfare of the people of that state by listening to the BJP. We have seen this happening in Kerala, we have seen this happening in Calcutta, we saw this happening in Karnataka, and Tamil Nadu is the classic example. And our Chief Minister, Mr. MK Stalin, tamed the bull by its horns. He did not buckle under the BJP's onslaught and their authoritarian mindset. He fought against them, and this is a historic victory for federalism, for the principles of federalism, for the states' rights and the autonomy of the states, and this is a victory of our Constitution of India. More importantly, this is a slap for the governor and the minions who were supporting him. The million-dollar question is this: will the governor resign now? Any decent man would resign after such a huge indictment from the Supreme Court. But we'll have to see whether he will. He'll be awaiting instructions from the RSS and the BJP on what to do further.